For 2 years now, every time Liu Ryan spent the night with me, she would always transfer me 100,000 yuan. But this time, I received 1 million. I'm getting engaged next month. Received. I stared quietly at the pinned chat window. It was silent, no further response. An hour later, I placed my resignation letter on the desk and headed home that very night. Just as I was daydreaming about buying a few properties and living off rental income, Liu Ryan suddenly appeared before me. Her anger barely concealed. Her eyes rimmed red. "He Kong, who allowed you to leave?" When I received the notification of 1 million deposited, my first thought was that Liu Ryan had accidentally pressed an extra zero. The next second, a message popped up in our pinned WeChat chat. "I'm getting engaged next month." I paused, stunned, for 2 seconds, then replied, "Received." Just 2 short lines. No different from the messages she usually sent to assign me tasks. I quickly understood her meaning. This million was my farewell. She was to marry a wealthy heir. I, her assistant and occasional companion, was no longer meant to linger in her world. I waited for a long moment, but no new messages appeared in the chat. She probably thought no explanation was necessary. I would surely follow her intentions. After all, in her mind, I had always been a man who knew his place. I wrote a brief resignation letter and left it on her desk, taking a few million from my account, and headed home that very night. I planned to finally take a break. In these years as Liu Ryan's assistant, I had become exhausted. Before I joined, Liu Ryan had already replaced 6 assistants. She was cold and authoritative, demanding and critical, ready to glare if even a single word was wrong. Exceedingly hard to please. At 3 in the morning, I'd receive her calls, get up instantly to accompany her on business trips, and work alongside her, tirelessly and without rest. We navigated countless rounds of social drinking events. I was diligent, cautious to a fault, all for the sake of this handsome salary. Everyone knew I was Liu Ryan's most competent assistant, yet she never offered me so much as a smile. She trusted me, but kept a perpetual distance. Once she told me I was allowed to stay, because I was smart and discreet. So, after our first night of drunken folly, I asked nothing, and I said nothing. Liu Ryan was the same. Only ... from that night onward, she would often spend the night with me. Every time Liu Ryan stayed over, the next morning, she would transfer me 100,000 yuan. At first, I felt enraged. After all, my salary was just 50,000. But for one night together, she would pay 100,000. It made the grueling work I did each month feel like a massive insult. And yet, at work, Liu Ryan treated me as if I were merely a tool, quick to scold me harshly, with no thought for my dignity, entirely ignoring the intimacy we had shared the previous night. Eventually, I felt that this 100,000 was rightfully mine. I was well aware of the distance between Liu Ryan and me. She was an heir, while I was a mere worker. Between us, it was nothing more than 2 adults getting what they each needed. There wasn't a shred of emotion involved. The 100,000 was a way to preserve our dignity. If either of us wanted more, it would become disgraceful. So, when she mentioned her engagement, I vanished from her life as swiftly as possible. I handled it all with my usual efficiency. But when I went to delete her WeChat, my fingers trembled slightly. My return thrilled my parents beyond words. They had always hoped I would come back, settle down, marry, and start a family near them, to live a peaceful life. I stayed home for a while, and suddenly felt like I didn't want to leave. The few million Liu Ryan had given me was more than enough to buy several houses in this second-tier city. I could live off rental income here, or find a job I liked. Either option would be fine, but unfortunately, I hadn't even been able to fully indulge in this dream before Liu Ryan suddenly appeared before me. When I saw the black Mercedes van downstairs, I thought it was just someone with the same model of car. But when I recognized the license plate, I froze. Why was Liu Ryan's car here? The next moment, she stepped out, cold and furious, and forcefully pulled me into the car. Her rage was barely contained, her eyes gradually reddening. He Kong, who gave you permission to leave? Disappear without a word? What do you take me for? I looked at Liu Ryan, puzzled. Aren't you getting engaged? Her face darkened. So what if I am? I was at a loss for words. Liu Ryan, do you even listen to yourself? You transferred me $1 million. Isn't that your way of telling me to leave? Liu Ryan paused for a moment. $1 million? I couldn't believe it. She had really pressed an extra zero by accident. He Kong, you wouldn't even ask. Did $1 million just settle things for you? Do you think so little of me or of yourself? She grasped my wrist tightly. And for once, she looked genuinely angry. I couldn't quite understand her anger, even if I had misunderstood her. Was it really worth this level of fury? Her coming all this way to find me? It honestly made me question things. Liu Ryan, no matter what, you'll soon have a family of your own. It's inappropriate for me to stay by your side any longer. Even without that $1 million, I would still have left. I looked quietly at Liu Ryan, slowly pulling my hand back. She could afford to be willful, but I could not. There was a storm brewing in her eyes, her expression slowly shifting, her lips curling into a cold smile. Am I not worth you fighting for? My heart suddenly began to race, and I spoke each word with care. Liu Ryan, between you and me, it's just 50,000 or 100,000. What exactly do you want me to fight for? Liu Ryan didn't respond. She grabbed my collar and kissed me, biting my lip in a sort of punishment. I didn't move, listening as she whispered harshly in my ear, He Kong, are you stupid? I told you I was getting engaged, and all you replied was received? Are you trying to drive me mad? I was waiting in the office expecting you to come find me, but instead you blocked me and ran away. You ran off so fast. Are you a rabbit? When I got out of the car, my breathing was still uneven. Liu Ryan lowered the window, her gaze steady as she said, I won't agree to the arranged marriage. I just need some time to handle things. I nodded, unsure of what to say. The driver got in, started the engine, and suddenly Liu Ryan's hand reached out through the window, grazing my waist. Her dress was slightly disheveled, a faint smile playing at the corner of her lips. Wait for me. The car drove farther and farther away, and my heart grew more chaotic. I was always calm and rational, keeping any inappropriate feelings buried deep within me. But now I decided to indulge just once. The tenderness Liu Ryan had never shown anyone else was like a key, unlocking a long-sealed door, letting certain intense, hidden emotions swell wildly within me. And impossible to stop, I became greedy. I wanted more. I waited for 3 days, then waited a week. I waited for a month, but no news came. Then, just as I had left Liu Ryan, she blocked me on WeChat. Her phone was unreachable, and she disappeared without a trace. Liu Ryan was gone. I tried reaching out to former colleagues, but they all told me that Liu Ryan hadn't been to the office in a long time. A faint unease crept over me. I ended up calling Liu Ryan's best friend, Lin Ruowei. I don't know about Ryan's situation either. Sorry, I can't help you. Hearing those words, I suddenly felt pathetic and ridiculous. Anyone else, perhaps. But if Lin Ruowei claimed not to know, she must be lying. It was Liu Ryan who didn't want me to find her. I should have realized it sooner. Yet I still foolishly tried to track her down. Truly self-deception. I locked myself inside my home, refusing to go out or see anyone. My parents were deeply worried, but they had no way to help until my childhood friend, Ziyan, came back from overseas and finally managed to drag me out. He Kong, don't be so spineless, alright? You used to be so carefree, always leaving whenever you wanted, letting go whenever you felt like it. How did you end up like this? Ziyan had been studying abroad for 2 years, but his words were still as sharp as ever. I sighed, letting the words slip out. I used to think I was carefree too, but now I feel like a joke. Ziyan sighed with me. Yeah, you managed to walk away clean and whole. But the moment she showed up, my heart felt a bit sour. So I turned to look out the window. Ziyan, I don't understand. How did I suddenly become so foolish? Ziyan looked at me for a moment, then spoke calmly. Kong, feelings are hard to figure out. But you know very well what it should feel like to truly care for someone. Ziyan's words struck me deeply. Yes, did Liu Ryan ever really care for me? In the 2 years I'd been by her side, even though we acted like lovers, she never once clarified our relationship. She always maintained a strict boundary between business and personal matters, showing me no favoritism or warmth at the office. Even that day she came to find me, when I asked her what she wanted me to fight for, she avoided giving a direct answer. She never once invited me to spend the night at her place, nor did she ever say she cared about me. Someone like her, a wealthy heiress, if she truly cared for someone, could it really look like this? I couldn't help but laugh at myself. Ziyan, I was foolish. I mistook someone's passing interest for something sincere, truly self-inflicted. Ziyan took a sip of his coffee and tried to comfort me. It's not entirely your fault. That Liu Ryan is indeed beautiful, and she's got quite a figure. It's only natural you'd fall for her. I pushed Ziyan lightly. You rascal, say a bit less. Ziyan laughed, teasing me. We're all adults here. What's there to shy away from? Let me tell you, you just haven't seen enough of the world. Get to know a few more women in the future. As Ziyan spoke, his expression suddenly changed. Following his gaze, I turned around and met a cold, familiar look. After disappearing for so long, Liu Ryan had returned. Ziyan glanced at me, then back at her, and couldn't help but sigh. He stood up casually, taking long strides as he walked away. Liu Ryan took the seat across from me. She leaned back in the chair, crossed her legs, her gaze calm. Maybe it was just my imagination, but she seemed a bit thinner. Who was that friend of yours just now? Don't contact him again. Her tone was as commanding as ever, as if I was still her assistant. I forced myself to stay calm. What are you here for? Liu Ryan's brows furrowed slightly, seemingly surprised by my tone. The matter is resolved. I've come to take you back. Her voice was steady, without a hint of emotion, as if nothing had happened. Over the past month, Liu Ryan, is there nothing you want to explain? Explain what? I looked at the composed woman before me and smiled faintly. Nothing. Just, Liu Ryan, I won't be going back with you. Liu Ryan stared quietly at me. Her gaze turned even colder. For a long while, she spoke in a heavy tone. Kong, what are you trying to say? Are you breaking up with me? I looked straight at her. Liu Ryan, what do you mean by breaking up? Were we ever actually together? Liu Ryan let out a bitter laugh. Kong, then what do you call to people who sleep together? What kind of relationship do you think that is? I replied coldly. 100,000 yuan relationship. Liu Ryan fixed her gaze on me, her eyes full of fury. After a moment, she spoke in a frosty tone. What exactly are you trying to do? I wanted to turn and walk away, to escape from this suffocating place. But the anger and resentment in my chest wouldn't let me leave just yet. Liu Ryan, you gave me the wrong impression, made me think you cared about me, made me believe we were more than just casual bedmates. You made me hope. But then you vanished for so many days, without a word. Even Lin Ruowei helped you keep your whereabouts a secret, making me feel like a complete fool. You don't care about my feelings at all, nor do you know anything about me. You don't even know that Ziyan is my closest childhood friend. You have no idea how you've trampled on my pride and the rationality I was once so proud of. Liu Ryan, we are from two different worlds. So, please don't entangle me anymore. Alright? Liu Ryan was silent for a long time. She had never seen me like this before. In her eyes, I had never contradicted her before, much less accused her like this. I had always adjusted to her pace and style, efficiently completing every task she assigned. No news because my phone was out of my hands for a while, she said. Since I told you to wait for me, I was bound to come back. You usually understand me perfectly. I thought we didn't need so many explanations between us. See, Liu Ryan still regarded me as her assistant, someone to execute her orders without question. Everything else didn't matter. I stood up, looking her in the eye. Liu Ryan, maybe in your eyes, there's no difference between an assistant and a boyfriend, but I can't. Once feelings get involved, I become sensitive, possessive of you. That version of me isn't what you want, and you aren't the kind of girlfriend I want. With that, I didn't spare Liu Ryan another glance and turned to leave the cafe. I could feel her gaze following me from behind, but she didn't come after me. I realized this time it was truly over between us. Late at night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. I got up and went out to the balcony for some fresh air, only to suddenly see a car below my building, a car that shouldn't be there. I looked at my phone. It was 2 in the morning. In Liu Ryan's car, a faint light was on, casting a blurred silhouette. She was right there in the car. Liu Ryan was on the phone, speaking with her friend. I told you I wouldn't hide it from him, but you wouldn't let me tell him. See what happened now? He doesn't know what's going on with you. Can't find you anywhere. How could he not be angry? Lin Ruo's tone carried a hint of smug amusement. Honestly, you really don't understand men at all. Liu Ryan looked out at the darkened street, her voice low and hoarse. He wasn't like this before. Lin Ruo let out a slight snort. Back then, you didn't say anything, so he only saw himself as your assistant. Now he thinks you're treating him as a boyfriend. Of course it's different. What's the matter? Just now realizing he's this sensitive? Do you not like him anymore? A slight smile tugged at the corners of Liu Ryan's lips, and her gaze drifted instinctively toward a window in the building. No, I like him more. The reason she had told him about her engagement, wasn't it precisely to provoke a reaction from him? She wanted to see when this obedient man would finally show his true colors. On the other end of the call, Lin Ruo laughed mischievously. Unbelievable! So Liu Ryan has learned to be manipulative too, huh? You know nothing about comforting a man. Need me to teach you? Liu Ryan scoffed. Didn't your guy run off for over a year and you still haven't coaxed him back? What gives you the right to teach me? Lin Ruo immediately snapped. Get lost. I'm wasting my breath on you. I barely slept that night, and when I finally got up, Liu Ryan's car was already gone. I stood there in a daze for a long while, then went to wash up and eat. The resumes I had sent out when I first returned home had already received interview invitations. I needed to prepare well and start a new chapter. My resume was fairly competitive, and soon the new company confirmed my employment. Though this company couldn't compare in scale to Liu Ryan's, I still worked hard to adapt to the new position, striving to do my best in everything. Recently, my mother's knee had been bothering her severely, so I made an appointment for her and asked my father to take her to the doctor. But unexpectedly, my father had to go out for something urgent, so I quickly finished my tasks and got ready to drive to the hospital. Just then, my mother called. Kong, you don't need to come. I've already seen the doctor. Today, I ran into a kind neighbor who not only drove me to the hospital, but also sent my test results to a specialist in a big city. The specialist said it's not serious, and he'll be in our area in a few days for consultations. He'll give me a few treatments then. After hanging up, I felt a little strange. For a moment, an outrageous thought crossed my mind. But I shook my head, telling myself I was just overthinking. That evening at dinner, my mother couldn't stop praising our new neighbor. She's such a pretty young lady. With a kind heart, too. I don't know what drew her to our neighborhood, but I heard she even paid 3 times the market price to buy the place next door. Old Wong was so excited that he moved out overnight, without even saying goodbye to your father. This time, she really was a great help. When your father gets back, we should invite her over for a meal. Hey, Kong, why did you stop eating? I put down my chopsticks and asked my mom, what's our new neighbor's name? She thought for a moment. I actually forgot to ask, but I overheard someone on the phone referring to her as Boss Liu, so I guess she's some sort of small business owner. Suddenly, I had no appetite left for my meal. Feigning discomfort, I retreated to my room and called Zi Yan. Hey, Zi Yan, what exactly is Liu Ryan trying to pull? Zi Yan sighed dramatically. Kong, you mustn't be defeated by her honey trap. It's just a spoiled rich girl's game. You have to keep your guard up. I thought Zi Yan made a lot of sense. So I continued with my routine of leaving early and coming home late for work, ignoring my mom's endless praise for the helpful new neighbor and all her hints for me to spend time with her. I turned a deaf ear to it all and certainly didn't meet her. But each night as I lay in bed, knowing that Liu Ryan was just next door, my heart couldn't find peace. Still, I told myself that she would soon tire of this. Someone like her, going to such lengths to get close to my family. If I gave her no response, how long could she keep this up? My mom might be innocent and trusting, but my dad wouldn't be so easily swayed by a stranger. As for Zi Yan was supposed to be my strongest ally, waiting for Liu Ryan to get bored, to tire of this game, and naturally leave. What I never could have imagined was that the first one to betray me would be Zi Yan himself. Kong, have you considered the possibility that maybe Liu Ryan has her reasons? Why not give her another chance? Maybe you two should talk things through again. Listening to Zi Yan, I wanted nothing more than to punch him through the phone. Zi Yan, weren't you the one who said it was all a game, a spoiled rich girl's trick? And now you've gone and switched sides? What on earth did she do to brainwash you? Zi Yan sniffed slightly. Kong, do you remember my sister's ex-boyfriend? I froze. Fu Sheng'en, that scumbag rich kid who left her. Exactly. After he abandoned my sister, I couldn't find him no matter how hard I tried. But a few days ago, he suddenly reached out to my sister, even knelt in public to apologize to her. Before he left, he said, Liu Ryan asked him to pass on a message to me, for some reason. My voice turned hoarse. What message? Zi Yan spoke softly. He said, in this world, whatever experiences I want, she make it happen. But as for you, Kong, she won't even let you look at them. My heart raced uncontrollably. I opened my mouth, but didn't know what to say. And of course, Kong, my change of heart has nothing to do with Liu Ryan introducing me to a few incredibly beautiful ... young ladies asking me to put in a good word for her. Zi Yan added with a chuckle. Honestly, she's quite charming, you know. Anyway, just think it over. I'll hang up now. After hanging up, I pondered for a long time. It seemed that Liu Ryan wasn't acting on a mere whim. But still, she lived right next door to me. So why had she never reached out? Or tried to see me? Unable to resist my mom's persistence, my dad finally went next door and invited Liu Ryan over for dinner. Fearing I might object, they didn't inform me in advance. So when I returned from work that evening, I walked in to see my parents and Liu Ryan sitting together at the dining table, an unexpectedly surreal sight. My mom urged me repeatedly to sit down. Like a robot, I took my seat next to Liu Ryan. My mom, already fond of Liu Ryan, was all smiles as she chatted with her. Even my usually stern father seemed pleased with her poised and elegant demeanor, his smile lingering throughout the meal. I kept my head down, eating silently. Under the table, a small hand suddenly touched my leg. I moved to push it away, but the hand quickly left my leg and instead wrapped itself tightly around my hand like a small snake. Cold sweat broke out all over me, and I didn't dare move an inch. Liu Ryan seemed to smile faintly, while my mom asked me to pour her a glass of red wine. Liu Ryan didn't refuse. My mom and Liu Ryan, getting along like old friends, ended up finishing an entire bottle of wine together. After dinner, Liu Ryan swayed slightly, seeming a bit tipsy. Thankfully, she lived just next door, only a few steps away. Late that night, I sat distractedly staring at my phone, when suddenly a message from Lin Ruowei popped up on WeChat. "Hey, I can't reach Liu Ryan. Could you check on her for me?" Liu Ryan's tolerance was far more than half a bottle of wine. There was something strange about Lin Ruowei's message. I dialed Liu Ryan's number. The first call, no answer. The second call, still no answer. Could she really have had too much? I threw on my jacket and went to Liu Ryan's door. Just as I was about to knock, the door opened on its own. A slender arm pulled me inside, and before I realized it, I found myself pressed against the door by Liu Ryan. She looked up at me, her breath tinged with the scent of alcohol washing over me. "He Kong, you finally decided to come. Do you know how much I've missed you? Every day, I want to break through that wall to find you." Her searing kisses landed on my throat, and with the last bit of self-control I had, I pushed her away. "Liu Ryan, what exactly are you trying to do? Stirring up trouble here for so long. Don't you care about your company anymore?" Liu Ryan let out a soft laugh. Looking directly into my eyes, she said, "He Kong, I can go without anything, but I can't go without you. I want to know everything about you, and I want everyone around you to know me." My voice trembled slightly. "So, Liu Ryan, do you truly have feelings for me?" Liu Ryan wrapped her arms tightly around my waist, whispering in my ear and lightly biting, "He Kong, I love you." From the very first time, there was no drunken impulse, only a long-planned desire. "Do you understand now, my dear assistant Liu?" It was as if Liu Ryan had transformed into someone else. In the past, even in bed, she would never say anything intimate. But now, baby, it's been 2 hours since I last saw you. Did you miss me? Darling, do you like the watch I bought for you? If not, I'll buy another. He Kong, I invested 5 million into your company today. Your boss said that if anyone dares to raise their voice at you, he'll deal with them himself. I asked Liu Ryan why she had gone off the radar before. She explained that there was heavy resistance from her family, and her father had locked her up, taking away her phone and computer to force her compliance. All my calls and WeChat messages had been blocked by her family. Although Lin Ruowei knew what was happening, she didn't want me to worry, so she didn't tell me. "Liu Ryan, if your father locked you up, how did you convince him?" She nestled into my arms. "I have my ways. Don't worry about it. And in the future, whatever comes, I'll handle it." I lifted her chin, saying seriously, "If anything happens, don't keep it from me again." Liu Ryan smiled and kissed me. All right. Liu Ruyan would soon be returning. There were numerous tasks piling up at her company, awaiting her attention. She mentioned granting me a long leave. She left it up to me to decide what to do while the company back home was in chaos. Once she had managed everything, she said she would come back to get me. I had planned to finish my current project, then submit my resignation and fly to find her. But before I could make a move, a middle-aged woman with a dignified air approached me. She introduced herself as Liu Ruyan's mother and said she wanted to have a word with me. Her tone was icy, but she maintained a calm composure. Ruyan's relationship with her father had always been strained. When it came to the matter of an arranged marriage, the conflict nearly led them to sever all ties. "I know you're a smart person," she said, "and I hope you understand that Ruyan's defiance of her father's plans isn't just because of you. She simply does not want her life controlled by others." Ruyan grew up under constant pressure, her childhood devoid of almost any joy. As a result, her personality turned cold, and she began keeping all her thoughts locked up inside. "But you've changed her a lot." I felt a bit puzzled. Liu Ruyan's mother didn't seem to resent me. So, why had she come to see me? What exactly did she want? The woman pulled out a medical report. It detailed the test results for Liu Ruyan's father. When I saw the word stomach cancer mid-stage, my hand involuntarily trembled. She got straight to the point. They caught Ruyan's father's illness relatively early. As long as he receives close medical treatment, there's a high chance of controlling the disease. But he refuses any treatment unless Ruyan agrees to the arranged marriage. The woman fixed her gaze on me, "Mr. Liu. No matter how strong Ruyan is, she can't just stand by and watch her father die. If you two continue, there will be no good outcome." Struggling to keep the tremor out of my voice, I replied, "I understand your point. I want to talk to Liu Ruyan personally." The woman looked at me for a moment, then pulled out a stack of photos from her bag. In every single one of them, Liu Ruyan was with a young man, wearing different wedding dresses, smiling blissfully. "Mr. Liu." When I stormed into Liu Ruyan's office, she was busy handling paperwork. Seeing me, she looked surprised. "Why are you here all of a sudden? Why are your eyes red?" I tossed a few photos onto her desk and spoke heavily, "Explain." As soon as Liu Ruyan saw the photos, her expression changed immediately. "Who came to see you?" "Your mother." Liu Ruyan's gaze darkened, and after a long pause, she looked up at me. "The photos are fake. They're edited." I gave a bitter smile. "Does it matter whether they're real or fake? The existence of these photos already proves the choice you've made, doesn't it? You'll end up marrying anyway. Your father is using his life to force you. You don't have any other path to take." Liu Ruyan stepped forward and took my hand. QIANG ... I shook her off forcefully. "Liu Ruyan, I understand and respect all your decisions, but couldn't you at least give me some notice beforehand? Does it take someone else showing me photos of you with another man for me to deserve knowing the truth?" Liu Ruyan hugged me tightly. "It's not like that. I just wanted my father to start treatment first. Then I'd find a way to handle the rest." "Akong, I will never marry another man." I pulled myself out of her embrace, speaking coldly. "Your mother was right. I was just part of your rebellion against your father's plans. Without me, you still wouldn't accept the marriage arrangement. Liu Ruyan, let's break up." When I returned to my city, I felt worse than ever. Ziyan met up with me a few times. Each time he wanted to comfort me, but he never knew what to say. Yes. At this point, what is there left to say? Liu Ruyan called countless times, sent countless messages, but I never replied. No matter how close we had once been, now there were mountains and rivers between us, making it impossible to go back. I threw myself into endless overtime work, letting my job consume all of my time. Some things I dared not think about, couldn't afford to think about. Remembering them was like a knife twisting in my heart. One late night, I received a single message from Liu Ruyan. "I love you." From that moment on, there was no more news. I didn't know why, but from that day, my heart would inexplicably start racing, and unease creeping in for no reason. One night, as I worked late into the evening, I saw Liu Ruyan's car parked outside my building. I stood there, frozen. The car door opened, and a young woman stepped out, walking toward me. But it wasn't Liu Ruyan. "Mr. Liu," she said. "May we have a word?" I found myself seated in a 24-hour cafe, holding a cup of coffee in my hands, waiting for Lin Ruowei, who sat across from me, to begin. Mr. Liu, there are some things you may not yet know. The conflict between Liu Ruyan and her father runs deep. When Ruyan was locked up back then, she went on a hunger strike for 3 days, just to make her father open the door. On the day you left without a word, Liu Ruyan went nearly mad. She pulled every string she could, just to find you. She even struck a deal with the young master of the Yi family to help her put on an act in front of her father. She paid a heavy price for it. Even I was a little shocked. I've known Liu Ruyan for a long time, and I've never seen her care so much about any man. From a woman's perspective, she continued, if this doesn't count as love, then what does? I looked up at Lin Ruowei. She usually loved to joke, rarely ever speaking so earnestly. Miss Lin, what is it that you want from telling me all this? I don't doubt Liu Ruyan's love for me. I also understand her difficulties. But what can I do? Should I force her father to die for our love? Lin Ruowei's gaze flickered for a moment. Mr. Liu, I'm telling you this to let you know that no matter what happens in the future, Liu Ruyan has done everything she could for your relationship. She loves you deeply, very deeply, so don't blame her. Her words struck me as odd, and my unease reached a peak. Lin Ruowei, what exactly are you trying to say? What happened to Liu Ruyan? Lin Ruowei hesitated, and my heart sank violently. I stood up, staring at her in anger. If you won't tell me, I'll go ask her myself. Lin Ruowei's eyes suddenly reddened. He Kong, something happened to Ruyan on the way to the hospital. My mind was blank. Lin Ruowei's words echoed. Liu Ruyan was in a severe car accident. She was in the emergency room for 2 days. No matter what the doctors tried, she never regained consciousness. Although she's no longer in critical danger now, she's still in a coma. The doctors said that the longer this goes on, the less likely she is to wake up. She may very well remain a vegetable. All of us have been calling out to her, but nothing seems to reach her. He Kong, you two loved each other. Go see her. Maybe your presence could make a difference. Lin Ruowei said a lot, but all I could hear were the words vegetative state and coma. I kept staring at Liu Ruyan's last message, I love you. The pain in my chest making it hard to breathe. After 3 hours, I stumbled my way into the hospital room. When Liu Ruyan's mother saw me, she rushed over, crying, He Kong, please save Ruyan. I walked up to Liu Ruyan's bedside, looking at her lying there, her body connected to all sorts of machines. It felt like I was dreaming. The woman who had always been so rational, so cold, who looked down on everything around her. How could she now lie here so still? Liu Ruyan, stop sleeping. Wake up. It felt like my mind had lost all reason, and I was babbling nonsense. Why are you so impatient? You left your message unfinished and then stopped replying. It's been days since you last said you loved me. Those women you introduced to Ziyan, they all fell for him. Now they're fighting over him every day, and he's going crazy. Our boss keeps grinning and flattering me, no matter how my work turns out, praising me endlessly. It's so dull. I preferred it when you were harsh with me. Tears started to fall, one by one, but I didn't even notice. Liu Ruyan, if you don't wake up soon, I'll go out exploring with Ziyan. He's got plenty of beautiful friends abroad, who he's been wanting to introduce to me. Suddenly, someone gripped my hand tightly. In a hoarse voice, Liu Ruyan said, He Kong, don't you dare. There was a moment of stunned silence around us, then everyone rushed out to call the doctor. I stood there, speechless, staring at Liu Ruyan in shock. She gently raised her hand, touching my face with a look of tenderness. Little fool, Come closer and let me give you a kiss. Liu Ruyan had many injuries, but luckily nothing major was missing or broken. The doctor said she needed to rest in the hospital for 3 months. Liu Ruyan's mother treated me like a savior, visiting the hospital daily to chat with me, afraid that I might leave Liu Ruyan alone. After the accident, her father no longer mentioned the arranged marriage. After all, she was alive, and that was the greatest blessing. Every day, I went to Liu Ruyan's company to handle affairs, then spent the nights at the hospital, staying by her side. She clung to me like a little puppy, throwing a fit whenever she didn't see me. Lin Ruowei watched us, clearly disgusted by our clingy behavior, rolling her eyes in disdain. Liu Ruyan, your man's become such a sap now. Aren't you worried at all? Liu Ruyan shot her a cold look, thanks to Lin Ruowei's exceptional acting skills. Lin Ruowei scoffed, "Oh please, Liu Ruyan, we're both just as bad." I cupped Liu Ruyan's chin, making her look at me. "What do you mean by that?" Sensing danger, Lin Ruowei quickly backed off, escaping with a smirk. Liu Ruyan burrowed into my arms, wrapping her arms around my waist tightly. "He Kong, I told you I'd resolve everything. I won't marry anyone else. My dad went too far. This was the only way to make him stop. Lin Ruowei came to find you, so my parents would know that you aren't just part of my rebellion, you're everything to me." I was in utter disbelief. So car accident was that your own plan? Yep, the crash was real, but the coma, I faked it. I knew my limits. I couldn't help but pinch Liu Ruyan's waist. "Liu Ruyan, are you insane? How could you dare crash yourself into a tree? Your so-called limits had you in emergency care for 2 days. Do you know that?" Liu Ruyan's voice was a bit aggrieved. "You're hurting me." I started rubbing the spot gently, still angry. "Do you have any idea how worried I was about you?" On my way to the hospital, I was already preparing myself for the possibility that you'd never wake up. Liu Ruyan suddenly sat up, straddling my lap. "He Kong, if I really never woke up, what would you have done?" I turned my head in mock anger. "Then I'd go find another girl." Suddenly, a soft hand slipped under my shirt, Liu Ruyan's fingers roaming boldly around my waist. I panicked a little. "Stop. This is a hospital." She chuckled softly. "So what? Can I be affectionate with my husband in the hospital?" My voice grew husky. "Who said I was your husband?" She kissed my forehead, my nose, and then my lips. Her movements tender, yet her tone forceful and possessive. "He Kong, in this life, you are only my husband, my partner, my man. If you want to see other worlds, you'll have to wait for the next life." The end.